Good evening. I hope I am audible.
Yes, Sunil, you're audible. Yes, Sunil.
Yeah. So good evening, everybody. So the topic today is mindset of an example. It's quite interesting when actually Jay Kishore asked me to give a talk or participate for this particular initiative. I did not have a topic to speak, and I was put to thought, and I thought then it was just basically what I was thinking. And after a few days, basically I came up with the topic of a mindset because everybody is talking about a mindset, but it is very difficult to exactly define what's a mindset. Is it a behavior? Is it basically a technique? Is it basically the way? Because when you say that you have a computer has a mind of its own, it's working on its own. That means it's performing, it is thinking, it's doing on its own. So it's a complete thing of basically a act which happens because of a mindset. So to define mindset, I feel is out of my capability. So I thought, I could share some examples uh, of how a mindset should be for being considered a leader or to be a leader. So that is how I came up with this topic, mindset of an example. So to begin with, let me thank all participants for being a part of this presentation, the PMI Kerala chapter board for driving this initiative to success and giving me this opportunity today. I'm thankful to PMI for having set this PMI chapter platform to develop the ordinary with extraordinary capabilities. It's always good to have expectations on either sides. So I hope this presentation, mindset of an example, transforms the participant as an example of the mindset at the end of this presentation. See, currently, or you say current times, we need agility towards adaptability. And it has become more of a requirement when we have this COVID-19. COVID-19 basically has disrupted communication. It has made the demand for using more tech tools. So you need to have a knowledge of different tools, delivery mechanisms. You need to have standardizations and different frameworks to actually communicate. So all these you need to, because transportation is actually challenged. You have the real-time visualization and localizations are challenged. You have the bandwidth problem. You have remote access problem. But all we have so many problems that basically has come because of this COVID-19. But if I ask a particular professional who is doing a project management, okay, has what the communication, what he is doing stopped? It has not stopped. Has the roles of the different, that is, RASI changed for him? It has not changed for him. Has the work he has to perform that has changed? He would say no, because he still has to deliver the same expectations with all these challenges. So I have taken an example of Dr. Albert Schweitzer. I am narrating about 3 incidents of his life's work. One is as a senior manager where he is taking a responsibility. Then again, a senior manager when he takes a consulting role. And a locality manager when he takes an accountable role. So before I start, there are a few things which I would like you to do. One is, look at one. Watch who I am and what role I represent, and my circumstance or context in the top part of this screen. Two, you can see the RASI, roles or values. Three, listen to my example. Four, read this bottom banner to voice your mind. So this is a very key important thing which you need to do. Read this bottom banner to voice your mind. So you need to actually engage yourself to exactly relate to this context. So I'm going to take you through this example of Dr. Albert Schweitzer. The narration is about an example that relate leaders to the RASI roles and values. The story localizes and visualizes how RASI values navigate through a leader. Responsibilities have defined RASI, which have goals in specific for a particular context. Now, as the context changes, the goals changes, the roles change, the responsibility change, the accountability change, everything changes. And that is what we talk about a context of disruption, which we all have faced. So, talking about the hero of this particular presentation, Dr. Albert Schweitzer, he is actually an, we say, Alsatian theologian, musician, philosopher, physician, and in the context of, we talk of different skills requirement, he basically is actually skilled being a theologist, a musician, a philosopher, a physician, and he was born in France. In 1899, he received a doctorate in philosophy. In 1900, he received a doctorate in theology. Between 905 and 911, he began making intensive studies and contribution to his literature on Johann Sebastian Bach, whose organ music he edited later. It was in 1913 he received a MD degree, that is, he became a doctor. Then he went with his wife, physician and researcher Helen Brazello, to Lambaréné, Gabon. So Gabon is a place in Africa. Schweitzer later took his zinc-lined organ with him to the damp climate of Gabon, Equatorial Africa. It is just why I mention this is that you don't simply go along. You carry your skills with you wherever you go. So whatever you actually have acquired during the time frame of your career, the skills always are your value. Occasionally, he returned to his Gunsbach bench. Gunsbach is a village in France, to perform, and elsewhere in Europe to raise funds. So your skills will be required for many, many things. And it will be required throughout your career. So you need to be always on this pursuit for developing skills of your own. And it was these African endeavors that made a world citizen out of Schweitzer. So not limiting yourself to any particular place, technology, thought process, I think, is the best way to move forward. In 1952, he won the Nobel Peace Prize, after which he spent most of his remaining years for his philosophy of reverence for life. Reverence means deep respect for somebody. But most famously, in founding and sustaining the Lambaréné Hospital in Gabon, West Central Africa. So what actually attracted me to this particular person was this particular saying. Example is not the main thing. in influencing others. It is the only thing. So, again, I repeat, example is not the main thing in influencing others. It is the only thing. So this actually put me to thought. And I started actually working on, okay, who is this guy? So let me first narrate the first incident as a senior manager for a responsible role. So I am going to be Dr. Albert Schweitzer and tell you the story. In my first week as a senior healthcare management job I ever had, I was at 22 and got this job relatively at a very young age. So as every person who gets a job at a very young age, we just run to take the job as senior healthcare manager, and then we feel, yes, these are the kind of, if I take a job, this is what I'm going to be, I'm going to do, I'm going to change the world. And we have so many aspirations in the mind. So when you look at the job profile, he thought, yes, he's going to set direction for the team, involve any issue and provide guidance to his team members. He's going to stay abreast of his important and relevant laws, policies, and procedures in governing, oversee and manage processes of clinical teams, plan, organize, and manage operations and activities of one or more health clinics or health programs. So this was all what was actually going in his mind. And as I go to Lamborghini and I take up the job the first week, I walk straight into something of a mini crisis in the transport department. The transport department consisted of one van driver and a relief driver who covered in the absence of the full-time driver. My arrival coincided with a long spell of sickness for the relief driver. And then after I had been in post for less than a week, the full-time driver went sick. I was assured that this was not linked to my arrival. So you can see in this picture where Gabon is in the West Africa. Although my job was much wider than merely managing the transport, it was nevertheless a small but important part of my duties. And so I was immediately on the spot. I had numerous demands from all the other departments who have been waiting my arrival as a new hospital manager. And yet, there was a mini crisis in one small department. I searched around and asked people, what were the contingency plans for such an event? There were no plans, as this had never happened before. I suddenly became aware that I was alone there and I had something to do. So it is that I had something to do. The only solution I could think was to become a van driver for a week until the regular driver came back after his sickness. And so my new smart office clothes that I had been proudly wearing for just 3 days were hung up. And I donned the overall and tunic of a van driver. I read the shift duties and asked around to become familiar with the duties. Now I was loading dirty laundry and unloading clean laundry. I was a courier service person, delivering post and blood samples between hospitals and health centers. I was people's carrier, transporting nurses back and forth to the neighboring town for their training sessions. At the same time, I was trying to fit a learning about other and bigger elements of my exciting new job. Although this was not exactly how I envisaged starting my career as a manager, I still remember it well. I think it stood me in good stead for future challenges. Having been there and got the t-shirt, I felt in a good position when challenged about the efficiency of the department whom I was responsible about. I was speaking from an informed position.
Hey, Sunil, your audio is not available. Sunil, can you hear us?
Is this better?
Yeah, we can hear you. Carry on.
Okay. So let me take you to the second role. So this was after 20 years. And I had taken a job managing mental health services. So there were actually two issues which basically I would like to bring in. That is an industrial action and a work to rule. So this was the crisis I faced. So I was telephoned by a manager of a residential unit for older people with mental health problems to say that the weekend coverage was stretched to a breaking point and there were concerns that patient safety may be at risk unless we could approve overtime. So all middle management persons always get, you have a conflict between the policy and what you are able to do and actually the requirement. So we were not allowed to pay overtime. That was a policy. And so I offered to work two 12-hour shifts on the Saturday and Sunday as an unqualified nursing assistant, if it would help. The manager of the unit was grateful, if a little suspicious about my motives, and agreed that I could provide a pair of hands for two shifts to help cover the immediate crisis. Those 2 days were very informative and instructive for me. As anyone in the whole career, I learned so much. Working alongside the frontline staff in such difficult circumstance was a profound experience that I will never forget. And although I had always prided in myself in how I felt, I could empathize with frontline staff. This experience proved to me that we never truly know what it is like until we do it. I did not forget the experience, the circumstance of the contest. I take the pride in empathizing. I do it till I truly know it. So this was actually what was my learning. My third example is an accounting role as a locality manager. Again, when I got the job, I was quite happy in looking into the job profile. Reporting to a country head of services, development and delivery of quality, so many blah, 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 so many things were there. But I wanted to get a feel of what it is like to work as a district nurse or a receptionist or a visitor and so on. So I planned to spend at least one day working with a member of each of the professionals I was accountable for. I planned it in partnership with the professionals concerned. And there were few cynical people who were again suspicious of my intentions and motives. On the whole, though, I was received well, and again, I found the learning very special. See, when circumstance dictate, you have to get hands dirty. So you have to remember actually where you come from and why you are there. I feel it should not be something that we do as leaders when there is a crisis, because it's not when you get a wake-up call. I would suggest all leaders or aspiring leaders to be well advised to build into their regular regime, that is into your daily routine, sometimes spend alongside with the frontline staff. I felt privileged to be able to share the time with those staff, and I am convinced it gave me much greater awareness of some of the things they have to deal with in the everyday sparring that goes on. There is simply no better experience than doing the job. Walking the talk means getting your hands dirty. So you never lose the responsibility of making sure the job gets done. Your credibility is always linked to how dirty you are prepared to see your hands become. Leadership is being an example of quality in context, in all aspects of perceptions of the job to be done. Empowering the team by sharing your learnings. To summarize, mindset of an example influences enthusiasm of team members to feel working in an awesome environment. Mindset of an example influences performance initiatives of team through motivation and empowerment. Mindset of an example influences direction of team towards its organizational goals. Mindset of an example influences study of the system, more the people empathetically. Mindset of an example influences development of synergy by their presence and behavior within a team. Mindset of an example influences maximizing usage of skill to increase productivity of team members. Mindset of an example influences by the way of navigating within and across teams in the organization with RASI involvement as appropriate. Mindset of an example influences the way of working to perform and become successful. So basically, example of this mindset transforms you to acquire the mindset of an example. So this is where I come to the close. I am open to questions.
I thank you, Sunil, for that wonderful session. So Before we go into questions, I just want to hear from you some of your personal experience uh, in this, because you have worked across a lot of different industries in different cultures. So, is that a thing that you see in all cultures or specifically in some culture?
See, I have worked, when I say not only, there are different strata of people. Let it be with respect to knowledge, let it be with respect to the kind of work, let it be with respect to the authority, who actually become influenced by the outputs of what we work. Okay, that is when you say, if you're talking of rolling out a big project, say if you just take a case of civil supplies, it might be within the organization of civil supplies, it will be within the dependence of ration shops, it will be dependence of so many people are actually influenced. Okay, now if you take an example of a governmental organization, last project which I was looking into, say you have the court systems, the Supreme Court and the different sub-courts in the state levels, center, district levels, the people who are associated with that will be very different from the way, how the forensics team and their knowledge and their thinking, they're working. So if you actually look at, you are actually facing a unique environment every time you interact with any person throughout your project. And that is the biggest challenge, because you need to navigate through their knowledge, you need to navigate through their behavior, you need to navigate into exactly their culture, respect their culture, uh, and their ways of actually dealing with you. So this is the people, there have been thought process where people say, you have to become, uh, you have to get the best out of all the people. But it is not possible to get, first is a buy-in from any of these people to get the best without actually being a part of them. You need to coexist with them. They need to feel you are a value, or then only they will do anything where you are going to suggest. So this particular thought process of actually getting a buy-in. So in my experience, I was actually following a rule basically that, I sit with my team and I always have lunch. I sit with my client and their team when I have lunch. So this way, basically, a lot of uh, thought process actually gets shared, and the inhibitions of the people actually move out, because it is very different. So that is what I felt, to become a leader, for the leadership actually is an acceptance of the people. It is not something that gets bestowed on you because you're getting a designation, you become a leader. I feel, you can be designated, but you don't become a leader of the people. You have to be a leader because by the way the team recognizes you, by the way your client recognizes you, by the way you add value to the organization, the way you add value to your system, and the way you perform.
Okay. So, my question is about, you worked in different geography like Africa, West Asia. So, is there a way in which is there a difference in the way people accept leaders in these different cultures? Have you encountered that, or is it like a unique thing that works everywhere?
I don't think anything everywhere it is the same. We have the same people with different thought process. Uh, you just need to understand the instincts, why your instincts, exactly what is expected out of you. So it doesn't come through somebody teaching you. You have to be adaptive, uh, vigilant, agile. That is the change that actually it just comes. Be a Roman in Rome. That's it.
Okay, good. I'll take one question from the audience. So, one is, we see a lot of autocratic managers and leaders existing in the current world. Do you think they would receive any respect, uh, even though the work might get done?
See, basically, what I would suggest is when we consider a leader as autocratic, maybe he does not know how you expect out of him. Okay. And he has his own ways and he is actually trying to implement what he has learned through. Maybe he's not adaptive or he has not understood it. That doesn't make him a person to be categorized as autocratic, because he is still getting his work done. There may be some behavioral aspects which can actually change. I think there are occasions of where gatherings happen, open houses happen, things like that. And when if you are actually being a part of the team and you are able to share and he is also able to accept it, maybe you can find that that person understands and changes. No leader actually would like to be categorized autocratic or his ways as autocratic or things like that. 100% he will not like to be defined as such a person. So I feel there is a gap between the team and this leader which you are talking about. There is a gap which basically has to be identified and fixed, and then you can see the change basically if you are able to approach to that leader the way you want him to be for you.
Sir, I do have a question. This is Wilson here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My question is, when we hear the word leader, people always, connect it with perfection or the embodiment of the best, who can motivate people all the time. But when we go through the challenging times, whether it is the Great Depression of 1930s or the 2008 recession or the biggest recession ever, the current COVID crisis, though we haven't admitted yet, even leaders also go through, some kind of struggles with regard to how to meet the expenses. Where, they are thinking about the bottom line. Do we have sufficient money to pay for the operational expenses as well? So, in that way, they may be a little bit stressed. So is it possible for anyone to continuously to motivate their own people? Is the word leader itself not a contradiction? Because you cannot be continuously a perfect person all the time. You can never be continuously too motivating or too encouraging. So is it not better to be to develop a team than developing yourself as a leader where people follow you?
Okay. Okay. Let me try to answer this. See, there are different concepts of I would suggest say it as techniques. You have heard of maybe servant leadership. This particular technique was basically, I understand, would come into place where when you're talking about complexities, say you have cybersecurity, you have data, loading happening, network bandwidth requirements, different type of architectures, data communication systems, where if you actually look into the team as a whole, there are a requirement of multi-specialist working. Okay. So in that kind of a scenario, basically what happens is, you still require somebody who brings out what is actually the best required solution for the requirement. At the same time, get the people together. Now, why? Because he will not have all the answers to the solution. This is from where actually the servant leadership concept actually came into, because they found most of the project managers don't have all the skill sets required to become a project manager. But that is actually not the case. Okay. Getting the best out of every individual of different skill and making the right decisions are totally two different things. Making the right decisions or becoming a leader for your for your team is a different role, the role which you are responsible for. Now, you cannot make everybody responsible for a particular work, which is your goal, in a team. You cannot make everybody accountable for in your team. You cannot make everybody consulted for in a team. It doesn't work because everybody will have the different races happening. So everybody has their own goals. The goals are very, very different in the team. So once you identify what a basic leader does is the leader actually strategizes the goals of each particular person's role to the organization and also actually navigates into that particular person, develops empathy, and try to get the best out of him and tries to see the result. So there was a case when you actually look it into XP kind of a program where you have two people sharing that side, A and B, two different people working simultaneously and giving you the result, and then basically both have to be considered equal. Okay, there are Scrum teams which says, okay, there is a Scrum master who will actually do the whole work of a leader. So these are all terminologies used by different associations of becoming a leader. Now, no leader basically is perfect. No solution is actually perfect. No thing basically can be defined as a perfect solution, a foolproof solution. Every solution will have its weakness. Every you will have its own things to be addressed. So, and nobody can, even if you talk of availability is a very key issue in most of the levels of communication. So where does perfection actually fit in? I think we are all living in a imperfect world. We just have to make the best of the situation. And when you are a team, when you are actually coexisting with the team, even if you are wrong, okay, the team will actually guide you the right way to take the right decisions. So that is why I always suggest that a leader should actually coexist in his system with respect to basically the roles and values he represents. So if he is able to do that navigation from context to context to attain the goals, I think he has done his job. Did I answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Very well answered.
Okay, thank you so much, Sunil, for this wonderful session, and thanks for replying patiently to all the questions. It's an excellent session for a WIS-talk, and would like to see more such things in the future also. Would encourage the participants also to come up with such talks, which is really beneficial to our community. Thank you so much, Sunil, and thanks everybody for joining this session today.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.